Well, I guess we're just gonna go for it and see what happens.
Okay. You are listening to A Scary State, and this week we're talking about North Dakota. So, Lauren,
Yes, Kenzie.
let's get scary.
We want to apologize. We thought we figured out how to do this whole thing, but now there's a slight delay on my part. So when Mackenzie talks or when I say something, she doesn't hear it and reply for a couple seconds, or at least that's how it sounds to me. So,
And to me, I feel like I hear it and immediately respond.
so yeah, it has to be something on my end. I don't know what's going on.
Well, you know what? Honestly, I'm just glad it's not me that's the problem this time.
Maybe it's the storm because the storm is hitting me now. So
Ooh,
it could
that's
be
true.
that.
That's true.
I mean, I can tell with how much Roy is running around.
Yes. So think of us like news people who are reporting from two different locations, and you have that momentary pause between when one person stops talking and the next person starts talking. What this also means is that we will most likely sound like we're interrupting each other,
It's not on purpose.
but it's not on purpose because it's just a matter of when the other person hears us start talking. So we're really not rude to each other.
We're not. It just sounds like it because technology.
Yeah. So we'll either sound really courteous for waiting so long to make sure the other person is done or really rude for cutting each other off. So
Thank God I can edit.
yeah. Problem solved. We'll be talking about this and they'll be like, what is she talking about? I don't know, delay.
So on a happy note, I finally saw my two favorite bands in concert.
Yes.
It was
Tell me.
So Crown the Empire played first. They were really great. I only knew one song. And then Slaughter to Prevail came on. I didn't know who they were. Well, I know them, but I don't know their songs. So I went to the bathroom at that point instead. And then, okay, so I'm coming back. I'm coming back from the bathroom and I knew what section I was in and I knew what row I was in. So I see the row and I'm like, oh, that has to be it. So I scurry down the row. I can't find my brother or his friend anywhere. And I'm like, I know they didn't leave. And I look up and I'm like, I'm in the wrong section. So I go out, I come back down. Instead of turning right, I turned left this time down the correct row. And the guy who was at the aisle seat, he was like, you made a wrong turn, I see. So he watched me walk the opposite direction just to come back down our row.
Was this the embarrassing thing you sent me a snap about?
Yeah, it was really embarrassing. And then, but it was fine. And then Ice Nine Kills came on and oh my God, they were so incredible. And I was like, the only one standing at this point, but I was like, I don't care. So I was like singing and screaming and dancing and I was just having myself a whole ball. And then
that's fantastic.
I know. And then Falling in Reverse came on and finally Jared and Mark stood up. And so it was just like all of us were singing and we all knew the words to every song and it was just amazing.
I would have stood with you for Ice Nine Kills.
I know you would have.
I probably would have sat for Falling in Reverse. I only know a handful of songs.
Oh, I knew every single song.
Well, of course you did.
I want to go see it again. I want to see it again tonight and I want to see it again tomorrow night and the next night. Even though my neck is sore, I will still go.
You are a trooper.
I know. I'm really sore.
Truly a dedicated fan.
It's been day 2 and I woke up this morning and I was like, oh, this is going to be the worst of it. And it's still pretty sore.
You crazy.
So how was your 4th?
Pretty good. We didn't do much. We went out to dinner with one of my mom's friends, a neighbor. Or not dinner, lunch. And then chilled at home. And I did a whole bunch of podcast things. If you haven't already, go check out our TikTok that I just made because apparently 107 people have already seen it and 57 of them liked it.
Which is amazing.
It's the best I've ever done. So really, and the bar was set pretty low. So, but this time making it only took me a couple hours. But one more thing before we start. My mom and I we're going to go watch fireworks. And I was like, Mom, we really, like, we don't have to go. Like, it's going to be crazy trying to get to the beach. And she's like, well, I'm pretty sure you can see them. Like, there's a baseball stadium nearby, or there's something nearby. She's like, I'm pretty sure you can see them. So we go outside like a little bit before 9:30. And sure enough, you can see them. And I'm like, oh, perfect. So we just kind of lean against my car, watch the fireworks. And she goes, isn't this better because we're alone?
She has the right idea.
And I was like, yep, you are right. It is much better.
Oh, that's so funny.
So yeah.
Oh, I'm glad you had a good 4th.
Mm-hmm.
We went to the pool.
As one should.
And it was
You
great
didn't
because
move.
I was in pain and I was a little hungover, so I just needed to lay and not move.
You know, the pool is a good place to do that.
It was. It really was.
All right, so tell me about North Dakota.
All right. So North Dakota has the world's largest buffalo monument. It's located in Frontier Village at Jamestown and stands 26 feet, around 8 meters tall, and 46 feet, or 14 meters long, and weighs about 60 pounds. Nope, 60 tons.
So for like the next few states, you're going to have to keep finding like the biggest blah, 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 because I feel like you've done that for the last ones that we've talked about.
Well, because some have big things and some don't.
Yeah, but so far, the Midwest has lots of big stuff.
Well, North Dakota is also home to the world's largest hamburger.
Where would we have the meatball? New Hampshire. Maybe they were, you think they came from the same cow?
Maybe. So it was eaten in Rutland on June 26, 1982. It weighed 3,591 pounds, or 1,628 kilograms.
Unnecessary.
That's disgusting. I don't even know. Gross. I feel like it would go bad before you could eat it all.
Yes. Agreed.
Nasty. They also host the world's largest annual French fries festival.
I could get on board with that.
I could absolutely get on board with that.
Mm-hmm.
Fargo was set in North Dakota. I mean, there's a place in North Dakota called Fargo, so it really makes sense.
Yeah, I talk
like
about
Fargo,
it.
the show. Oh my God, I do too. Like the show Fargo. There's a show called Fargo. Joe and I started it for a little bit, and then we stopped, and we haven't started it again. The geographical center of North America is Rugby, North Dakota. So, right there.
Oh, of North America. I was like, that is not the center of the United States, but there's 2 other countries.
Of North America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
See, this delay is going to make you think you're going to think I'm more stupid than I really am. Because I won't get to finish my thought process before you hear the beginning half of it.
I'll give you 2 seconds after everything I say to really take it all in.
Honestly, that's probably a good idea.
And just in general.
Yeah.
Though North Dakota isn't considered the sunflower state, they do have more sunflowers than any other state.
Missed opportunity.
I think Kansas is the sunflower state, like the technical sunflower state.
Florida is sunshine, so.
No, not the same thing.
No. Well, it's sun. Sunflowers need the sun. In fact, they turn towards
being sunflowers. All right. They also have the largest church-going population, but I don't have any percentages for you because those don't work for us very well. Well, for Mackenzie. The lowest temperature recorded here was on
I'm sorry. You didn't give
I gave you like a good pause there.
Because I thought you meant you just didn't have them.
Well, I don't have them, but also they don't work for us anyways, because someone doesn't like to think that a small percentage of something could be the same percentage in another place, just different numbers, but the same percentage.
Look, I clearly did not grasp the concepts of ratios and proportions. So
I know, which is why me being the one who was okay at math should be the one that should be trusted over the one who is not okay with math.
I hear your argument, but I'm going to have to respectfully disagree.
If we have any like engineers or something out there, let us know.
They're going to tell. I was looking up like podcast equipment on Amazon, and they came with like the little sound system, like the doohickey with all the buttons on it, and it looks like a little
Ooh.
mini DJ. What you want that thingy?
Uh-huh.
And I was like, mm-mm, that's too complicated. I
No,
like
you would have
something that we
way too much
can
fun with that.
plug in and press start.
Yes, pretty much.
Oh yeah, if we got
Alright.
one of those things and I figured out how to do sound effects,
Oh
game
god.
over.
'Cause we already had an episode where you tried that and that didn't work.
Yeah, but this would be on like an official thingy.
Yeah, we definitely don't need that. The lowest temperature recorded here was on February 15th, 1936. It was -60 Fahrenheit, which is -51 Celsius. Gross. It is the 8th easiest state to vote in, which I don't really know what that
Hmm.
means.
Yeah, maybe being like whether it's in person or mailing in, like a lot of states have very
Mm.
specific guidelines and regulations for absentee ballots. And so it makes it harder for people to be able to vote because of various stuff.
Makes sense, makes sense. It is
Mhm.
also the least visited state in the US,
That tracks. What
and
the
it
fuck is
has
there to do?
well, literally nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what are you gonna go see? It doesn't even have Mount Rushmore.
Blah, blah, blah.
That's that's in the South. All it's got is just some giant food.
Alright, it also has, trigger warning, the highest suicide rate in the US.
I think I knew that. It's because it's among Native American teens, right?
I didn't look that far into it, but I think you're right.
Mhm.
It is unknown if North Dakota or South Dakota were the first admitted to the Union. President Benjamin Harrison shuffled the statehood papers but failed to announce the order of admission. So it's kind of a toss up between which of the two came first.
The chicken or the egg.
Exactly.
Hmm.
The prairie rattlesnake is the state's only venomous snake. It is also
Mhm.
home to many nuclear weapons facilities, to include Minot Air Force Base.
Hmm.
They hold the Guinness World Record for most snow angels. The event involved
Oh, that's so
8,960.
fun.
I know! Isn't that super cute?
That's adorable.
So there were 8,962 people involved.
Nice.
Wild. All right, so here's a creepy but true urban legend. In January of 1981, Jean Hilliard, a teen, her car spun out and went face first into some snow. It dropped to -20 degrees that night, and Jean was out there all night, not being found until the morning. She was
Mm.
taken to the hospital, but her skin was so hard that she wasn't able to be injected with anything, and her temperature was too low that it wouldn't register on a thermometer.
Oh my
But
god.
yeah, but 3 hours after being brought in, her body thawed, she regained consciousness, and she survived.
It's like when frogs in the wintertime, they freeze, and so, like, their heart rates drop, like, super, super low in the wintertime, and then when the spring comes, they thaw out and they hop away.
I think that happens with iguanas too.
Iguanas live in the desert.
No, there's like some that live someplace, like lizards or some type, where they'll freeze and they'll end up like falling out of their trees and stuff. And then by the time they thaw, they can scurry back up. I know I'm right.
Okay.
I read it somewhere.
Okay.
If it's on the internet, it must be true.
Yeah, that's what I tell my kids.
The first camera was invented in North Dakota.
Kodak? No, that's copies. No, that's in New York. Just kidding. Keep going. No, that's Xerox. It was Kodak.
I don't know. Stop yelling. No, I'm kidding. Really intense about this information. Was it Kodak?
No, that was in New York like I thought it was.
So you were right the first time.
Go ahead. Continue.
All right. The electric refrigerator was invented in 1918 by James C. McAuliffe. The helicopter was invented in 1935 by Igor Sikorsky.
Hmm.
Josh Duhamel, an actor, was born in Minot. And Jeffrey Dahmer and Dennis Rader both spent time in North Dakota.
Josh who?
Duhamel? I don't know. He's an actor. There weren't many people from North
Josh
Dakota.
Duhamel?
No, the thing said Duhamel.
Josh Duhamel. Josh Duhamel, beautiful specimen of a human being, and you butcher his last name?
I'm sorry, I don't know.
Google him right now, and I guarantee you're
I
like,
did.
"Oh, that guy."
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I'm not good with names. Give me faces, and I'm like, "Oh, I've seen that before." Give
I'm
me
like, "What the
names, I'm
fuck
like
is Josh Duhamel?"
That's how it looks like you pronounce it.
You're right, and I know those who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, but
Yeah, exactly.
that shit was funny.
You know what? When I was doing the one episode where I just kept saying the fact and you just kept drinking your water and neither of us stopped. I listened back over that when I was editing and I could not hear you at all.
Yeah, because I took, like, one sip and, like, was trying to hold it in to see if he would stop, and then,
Yeah,
like
nope. Neither of us were on the stopping. Just kept going.
well, because usually you see me, I don't have to say anything, so you just stop.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on that day. I was just like really into what I was saying to you, and I was like, nah,
I was
we're
like,
just
"Wow,
gonna
she has
push
a
through.
lot of faith in me." With one podcast I listened to, they start off each episode with, like, a cheers, and I realized that we could never do that.
No,
Until
unless we do the cheers, but then I don't let you swallow, or I just make sure I cut it out.
One of these days, I'm gonna, like, sneak it in when you're, like, talking so you don't really hear it and you have to keep it in.
That's gonna make people really mad.
Yeah, but I just think it'd be funny.
Wait, what is the thing where you have an aversion to sound? Oh, misophonia. It's the hatred or dislike of sound. So if it's like when people are very sensitive to things, so it's like the sound of someone chewing an apple or the sound of people eating while they're talking. So people would not like that if you did that while we were listening or recording and they were listening.
Hmm. Loud gulping noises when you drink are often caused by lack of oxygen to your lungs.
WebMD diagnosing ourselves.
So it says try to take a deep breath before drinking.
Ooh, let's try. We're trying not to choke in the middle.
Okay. Take a deep breath before drinking. Then how do you have enough?
It's so you have oxygen in your lungs.
How is
Yeah,
that?
no, that's it. No, bad.
All right. So today's case brings awareness to the missing and murdered Indigenous women in the United States and parts of Canada. As of 2021, the Sovereign Bodies Institute database of missing and murdered Indigenous women contained 4,754 cases in the United States and Canada.
Jeez.
The Department of Interior reported, quote, approximately 1,500 American Indian and Alaskan Native missing persons have been entered into the National Crime Information Center. Throughout the United States, and approximately 2,700 cases of murder and non-negligent homicide offense have been reported to the federal government's Uniform Crime Reporting Program.
I'm sorry, just you were like, crime program. It was just very funny.
Wait, I didn't realize it kept going. In total, BIA, Bureau of Indian Affairs, estimates that there are 4,200 missing and murdered cases that have gone unsolved.
Jeez.
And for those of you keeping score at home, 1,500 plus 2,700 is 4,200. Then that says to me that all of the cases that have been reported, not a single one of them are solved.
Yeah, no, it doesn't sound like it at all.
Like that's like usually it's like maybe like a percentage, but
Right. Usually it's like, oh, only about like 5% haven't been solved or something.
right. But it's like that's all of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So at first, this idea seems preposterous, but after researching this case, it doesn't seem so far fetched anymore. I am not an expert in this area, but I can report the facts and information I find. In the show notes, we'll put websites and organizations that you can look into for more information and how you can help. The region we're focusing on today is a river that runs along the North Dakota and Minnesota state line and into central Canada. The Red River forms most of the border between the two states and flows north into Lake Winnipeg. The lake is in the southern region of the Manitoba province of Canada. In 2014, 7 bodies of Indigenous women were found in the Red River on the Canadian side. The first story I'm going to share with you today is Tina Michelle Fontaine, who was a citizen of the Sakin Gig. Let me look that up. There's an N and a G next to each other. That just throws me off. Who was a citizen of the Sakin First Nation. Her case is an important catalyst for bringing awareness and inciting change in Canada's policies for missing and murdered Indigenous women or persons, or MMIW. So now, before you say anything about this being in Canada, I have a good reason for including
You knew I
this
was about
case,
to.
and it does connect to the case in North Dakota.
Okay.
So here are my 4 reasons for why this is justified. 1, this case is one of the cases that brings in awareness to the bodies of Indigenous women that have been found in the Red River, which is 134 across US and Canada. Number 2, the Red River is 550 miles long, or 885 kilometers. 395 of those miles, or 635 kilometers, are in the United States, and 158 miles, or 250 kilometers, on the Canada side. So that means that the majority of the river is on the US side.
Right.
And the distance between Fargo, North Dakota, where the North Dakota case takes place, and Winnipeg, Canada, is 221.4 miles, which is a 3-hour and 50-minute drive. So it's basically in the same place. But, it takes longer to get across Virginia than it does to get to those locations.
I was just thinking that.
So, and it's an important topic, so you would look like an asshole for getting mad at me. Ask for forgiveness, not permission.
I love when you're like, okay, how can I make this case relate to the state I need it to relate to?
And I was like, I just will. Okay. So the odds were stacked against Tina from before she was born. This poor girl probably had an ACEs score of 10. And for those of you unaware of childhood trauma, ACEs is a tallied score of the different types of abuse, neglect, and other hallmarks of a rough childhood.
I actually had no idea about that. Like, I didn't know that at all.
Really, I would think with what your mom does.
You would think, but no.
ACE stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences, and multiple studies have been done that link the childhood experiences to a number of mental and physical health issues in adulthood. So I won't go into all the statistics, but obviously the higher your score is, the more at risk you are for later health problems. So Tina's paternal grandfather was a residential school survivor. His own experiences leading to years of severe alcoholism and violence. Tina's father, Eugene, left his home at the age of 12 and moved to Winnipeg, where he had to fend for himself in the streets and later developed an addiction to alcohol.
Well, that's
Tina's
sad.
mother, it doesn't get better. Tina's mother, Valentina Duck, was removed and returned to her mother several times, starting at the age of 6. By age 10, Duck had been taken from her family permanently. She was moved repeatedly and started to be sexually exploited by adults and started using alcohol and drugs.
Oh my God.
I didn't think to give a trigger warning because I figured since I was talking about Native Americans, it was going to be implied.
Well,
But
maybe just give one now.
there's a lot of triggering stuff in this entire story.
Yeah, we're in the
So-
first 10 minutes and I can already tell that it's going to be like that.
Yeah. So my bad for not saying something at the very beginning, but going forward, it really doesn't get better
Oh, good.
in both cases. At age 12, Duck had met Eugene, who was 23 years old at the time.
And how old was she?
So 12.
Oh.
And that's also when she had her first child. She
She's
had Tina
12.
She's 12, and then she had her second child, Tina, at age 14.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
How? That's so damaging.
Uh-huh.
Oh my
Mhm.
God.
Tina was
That's
removed.
like siblings. That's the sibling age difference.
Yeah. Mhm.
Oh,
Yep.
that's so sad.
Absolutely. Tina was removed from her mother by the time she was 1 year old, and again when she was 2. She was then returned to the care of her father, who gave her and her younger sibling to a great aunt and great uncle by the time she was 5. At age 12, her father was beaten to death. The 2 assailants were convicted of manslaughter.
Oh my god.
The death of her father greatly affected Tina, and her family said that this is when she started to pull away. Records showed that Tina became increasingly absent from school, missed assignments, got suspended, was involved with many verbal and physical altercations, received medical treatment for self-harm, and had been reported missing 3 times. During this time, her family had repeatedly asked for help from Child and Family Services, and they didn't get any.
Of course they didn't because Child and Family Services, I'm sorry, kinda sucks.
Yeah, well, for like any other government agency, they're not properly funded because they're not the military.
Correct.
And so that doesn't help in their situation, but also at the same time, it's like, I mean, this is in Canada, so I have no idea how their rules differ from ours.
Right, but it's also they're dealing with minorities, and minorities never get the same
Exactly. Like
care or
all
attention.
even the Wikipedia page that like I got a
Hmm.
lot of this from talked about how like, you know, the Child and Family Services didn't handle that correctly and this correctly. And especially like when her father died, she should have been given like grief counseling and she wasn't given that.
Absolutely.
So it's not like her family did try and the help wasn't given to them.
Right, like, sometimes you can try as much as you want, but if you're not getting that additional help, it doesn't matter what you do, you're not gonna get ahead.
Exactly. So in the early part of 2014, Tina went to visit her mom in Winnipeg, and by then Duck had lost custody of all of her children due to her involvement in sex work and her struggles with alcoholism. By mid-July, Tina was under the care of Child and Family Services in Winnipeg. She was bounced around from hotels to different youth shelters. So they would
Ugh.
put kids up in hotels. At the beginning of August, Tina went to stay with an aunt for the weekend. Tina called her CFS worker on August 5th and was picked up by a member of CFS. It is unclear where she was between August 5th and August 8th, but there's a girl who went by the name of Katrina who had reported to the news that she had been with Tina the night of August 7th. The two
Okay.
girls met between 10 and 11 p.m. and went to the McDonald Youth Services to get something to eat around 2:30 a.m. At 5:15 a.m. on August 8th, 2 police officers encountered her in a truck with a drunk driver that they had pulled over as part of a traffic stop.
Encountered
As she
who?
was So the police pulled over this car for, I'm assuming, I don't know if it was just a regular traffic stop or if they pulled him over for drunk driving, but she ended up being in the car.
Which girl, though? Both of the girls or just one?
Oh, I'm sorry, just Tina.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know what happened to her between 2:30 and 5:15.
Right.
Right. So she was not taken into custody, even though she had originally been reported missing on July 31st. But the timeline that I've been giving you was found out later. So the
Okay.
reason they first started looking into it was because on July 31st, she was reported missing.
Gotcha.
Obviously, she wasn't. And,
Mhm.
but I don't think they knew that at the time. So even though they pulled over this person who was drunk and she was a missing person, they didn't do anything. So
Okay.
those officers were suspended and left the police force.
Damn. Well, I mean, good. At least
Right. Like
something came from
she's
it.
she's 15 years old. Like
Right.
she's a
Right.
baby and
I mean, regardless, she's underage, so there
yeah,
should have been something done about that.
exactly. I'm like, no. At 10 a.m., she was found passed out in an alleyway near the University of Winnipeg. She was escorted to the health center for treatment and reported to her CFS worker that she had been associating with a 62-year-old man named Raymond Cormier.
Oh,
She's 15.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, gross.
So CFS placed her in another hotel, but Tina left shortly after that. And Katrina reported being with Tina at around 8 p.m. that night after she had left the hotel.
And what day are we on?
August 8th.
Okay, that's what I thought. I was just making sure. Okay.
Yeah. Around 3 a.m. on the morning of August 9th, the two girls were approached by a man who had offered Tina money for a sex act, which she accepted. And that was the last time she was ever seen alive again and was reported missing again on August 9th.
And what's
On
so sad
August,
too is not only is she a minority, but she's
Mhm.
also like participating in sex work, so that
Mhm.
automatically puts her as like a sex worker, which again
Yep.
is a population that people just seem not to care about when something happens to them.
Yep. And one of the articles I read said exactly that, that it's
Ugh.
like it's already hard enough, and then when there's like illegal activity associated with it, like they just don't even care about the victim.
Right, I've heard multiple times that, like, serial killers have done it. I think we've talked about it before, where they
Yep.
consider sex workers to be, like, less than dead.
Yep. And they go for that population of people because they know that society also doesn't care about them. And so
Right.
it'll be easier for them to get away with it.
Ugh.
Yeah. So on August 17th at 1:30 p.m., this is what? A little less than 10 days later, a
Mhm.
week
Yeah.
later. Her body was found wrapped in plastic in a duvet cover, which was weighed down with rocks in the Red River. She was identified the following day, and investigators believe that she had died on or around August 10th, which would be like, oh, the last person that she was with probably did it because she was with
Right.
that one guy like early as fuck, August the morning of August 9th or
Mhm.
whatever. Yeah. But the autopsy was unable to conclusively determine a cause of death.
Of course.
The man that Tina said she was associated with, Raymond Comier, was charged with second-degree murder in December of 2015. He pleaded not guilty, and the trial began in January of 2018. The case was largely circumstantial, with no forensic evidence or eyewitnesses directly linking Comier to Tina's death. They relied on some statements Comier had made during an undercover sting operation, and on February 22nd, the jury found him not guilty, and the prosecutors then announced in March that they would not be appealing the case.
And that kinda sucks too because it really does sound circumstantial because there's, like, no hard evidence unless they found a piece of her clothing with him. But even then, they knew that she was doing like, sexual activity or whatever, sex work with him, so he's gonna
Right,
have
like
the DNA.
she had told somebody that she was associated with this man.
Right. So it's not
Like
even
she
like he could be like, "Oh, I've never seen him before. Oh, then how do you have DNA?" You know?
Right. So,
Ugh.
in response to Tina Fontaine's death, a number of initiatives were started. The Canadian Human Rights Commission requested the number of MMIW. I'm just going to say that because it's less than the other one in
Okay.
Canada. In 2016, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau began a national inquiry. A volunteer group known as Drag the Red was formed. They regularly drag portions of the Red River in hopes of finding remains or evidence of missing persons or homicide cases.
Oh my god.
Mhm. The Bear Clan Patrol, oh, in every article I read about it, it pointed out the fact that law enforcement will not help them with this cause.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all.
Same. The Bear Clan Patrol was created, which promotes safety and crime prevention in Winnipeg's North End. In 2015, Manitoba's CFS announced that they would no longer place children in hotels. Genius. The Strong Hearted Buffalo Women Crisis Stabilization Unit was formed in the fall of 2015. It is a crisis intervention program of Indigenous girls who are considered at risk of sexual exploitation.
I will say though
And
that putting people in hotels, like Mobile Hope will do that for kids because there's never any room in the shelters. And so if
right,
the kids need like immediate help or immediate like safety, they do go in hotels and it does help some kids a lot.
right. I think the risky part with hotels is that there's not a way to track them like there is in a shelter.
Right. Right.
So I think that's probably why it's hit or miss.
Right.
But if it works, it works. And I totally
Mhm.
get there being lack of space too. So you got to work with the resources you have.
Exactly.
The Indinawe Youth Resource Center was renamed to Tina's Safe Haven and launched a 24/7 safe space for youth in November of 2018. The Drag the Red campaign found 7 bodies of Indigenous women in 2017, and in 2015 they found 4 human teeth. Was
God.
not I wasn't able to find whether or not it was all from one person. It was passed on to police.
Right.
It was confirmed by a pathologist.
Did they ever do testing to see if those teeth belong to any of the 7 women they found? Like later, like in the next, like whatever, how many years?
Apparently, the police are working on identification, but nothing was reported that I could find.
Naturally.
So, yeah. Needless to say, if there is anything positive to come from the situation, it's the newfound drive and determination to help this underserved community. And this brings us to our next case, the case of Savannah LaFontaine Greywind, which sparked a similar initiative in the United States. And it's just a coincidence that they both have Fontaine in their last name.
Yeah.
Savannah LaFontaine Greywind was excited about her future. She was 22 years old and recently got a job as a nursing assistant with the hopes of qualifying as a nurse specializing in elder care. Savannah was close with her family and was a member of the Spirit Lake Sioux tribe. She was currently living with her parents and brother in Fargo, North Dakota. And in 2017, Savannah and her longtime boyfriend, Ashton Metheny, were planning to move into an apartment together in September and were expecting their first child.
Oh, and how old is she again?
22.
Okay.
Healthy, normal relationship.
Right.
Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. On August 19th, 2017, around 1:30 p.m., Savannah told her family that she was going to help the upstairs neighbor, Brooke Cruz, with a dress that some reports say sewing, others say modeling. But regardless, Cruz offered her $20 to help out, and Savannah rarely passed up an opportunity to help others. She texted her mother and boyfriend about her plans and ordered her family a pizza. By the time the pizza arrived, Savannah had to go upstairs to Cruz's apartment, and that was the last time anyone saw Savannah alive again.
And how pregnant was she at the time?
We'll get there.
Oh, okay.
Savannah's mother and boyfriend hadn't heard back from Savannah and continued trying to get a hold of her throughout the afternoon. It wasn't like Savannah to not answer or reply right away. Savannah's purse was in the kitchen and her car was parked in its usual spot. Savannah was supposed to take her brother to work, but never showed. By 4 p.m., Norberta, Savannah's mother, grew increasingly worried. She went upstairs to ask Cruz about Savannah, and Cruz told her that she had left around 2:45.
And what time is it now?
4.
Oh, okay.
Norberta knew that her daughter wouldn't have just walked off after leaving Cruz's apartment. She was 8 months pregnant with swollen feet. She wasn't walking anywhere.
No.
If she did have to go somewhere, she would have taken her car.
Mm-hmm.
Norberta had always had a bad feeling about her upstairs neighbors. Cruz and her boyfriend, William Honan, were known for having explosive fights. The fights would be so intense that it would shake the ceiling of the apartments below them.
Oh my God.
Not long after Honan moved in, he had pleaded guilty to assaulting Cruz when he threw her into the bathtub.
Oh, geez.
He received a court order for no contact, but 6 months later, police were responding to a disturbance from the Cruz apartment. Honan was charged for violating the no contact order. Their constant fighting was not the only thing to make Savannah's mom uncomfortable. A few weeks prior, Cruz had come to their apartment and asked Savannah if she wanted to smoke weed with her.
And she's like visibly pregnant.
No. Yeah, I mean, if this was only a few weeks ago, she's...
Oh, right. Yeah, she's 8 months now. Jeez.
Yeah. By 4:30 p.m., Norberta reported her daughter missing to the Fargo PD. The police arrived at the apartment at 5 p.m. and spoke with her. They then proceeded upstairs to Cruz's apartment, and since that was Savannah's last known whereabouts, police searched Cruz's apartment twice on August 19th and again on August 20th, and their search turned up nothing. Because Cruz and Honan were the last ones to see Savannah, they were the only suspects in her disappearance. Police went to Honan's place of work to speak with his coworkers. They told police that Honan said that he had a new baby at home. When police had previously searched the apartment, they did not see any signs of a baby.
Oh, my heart's beating.
The reports of the new baby were enough to grant the police with a search warrant to search the apartment. Again.
Fourth time.
On August 24th, police executed the search warrant with Cruz present, and on the bed there lay a healthy baby girl. Cruz was immediately arrested, and Honan was arrested at work. 3 days later, Savannah Greywind's body was discovered by kayakers in the Red River. A DNA test confirmed that the baby girl was Savannah's, and she was returned to live with her father.
Oh my God.
On December 11th, Cruz pled guilty to charges of conspiracy to commit murder, conspiracy to commit kidnapping, and lying to police. And then she testified in court about the horrific details that had transpired on August 19th, 2017. Early in 2017, Cruz had lied to Honan about being pregnant because she thought he wanted her to have a baby. In August, Cruz and Honan got into an argument, and he told her that he knew she wasn't actually expecting, but he had already told other people that they were. He then demanded that she, quote, produce a baby. And Cruz believed that this meant she had, quote, better have a baby no matter how it happened. Supposedly, Honan had mentioned how that, quote, Greywind girl is really pregnant. And Cruz said that she thought this meant he wanted her to take Savannah's baby.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Cruz originally told police that Savannah had brought the baby up to her apartment and willingly gave her up before she vanished.
Right, and willingly gave the baby up while she was still pregnant with the baby.
Right. hmm
Mhm.
What really happened was Cruz invited Savannah up to her apartment to help with a project. She purposely started an argument with her, and then she pushed Savannah, who hit her head on the bathroom sink and was knocked unconscious.
Oh,
With Savannah lying on the bathroom floor, Cruz grabbed a small blade from the kitchen and proceeded to
no.
cut. Okay, this is going to be a little graphic, so skip ahead if you don't want to hear it. Proceeded to cut Savannah's abdomen open and took the baby out of her womb. During this time, Savannah was drifting in and out of consciousness. So she was alive.
Question.
Yeah.
Did that cruise lady have any, like, medical knowledge? Because I feel like I wouldn't know where to cut to get to the womb. No.
Well, think about where you feel cramps.
Well, yeah, but, like, I still wouldn't, feel like there's a lot of other stuff you could cut in there.
True. True. But no, not to my knowledge. I don't know
Okay.
what her job was, but I don't think it was that. When Honan came home to find Cruz on the floor with Savannah, he asked her if she was dead, to which Cruz replies, quote, "I don't know, please help me." Honan then retrieved a rope from another room and used it to strangle Savannah. The medical
Oh my
examiner
God.
testified that he was not able to determine if she had died from blood loss or strangulation. Cruz also testified that during the two searches that had been conducted by police on August 19th, so the day she was reported missing, Savannah's body was stuffed in the bathroom closet of her apartment.
The one that they supposedly searched 4 times.
Yeah, and this was on, like, her body was there. The first day that they got there, they
Mhm.
searched the apartment twice and they didn't, like,
How do you miss that? Or did they just not really search?
I don't think they actually searched. Because there's no
Jeez.
fucking way. Even if you're just looking in, like, closets and things like that,
Mhm.
if clearly she had to say, like, yeah, you can come in and search. They didn't have a search warrant at this point. So she gave them permission.
Right.
And why would you not open a closet door in the bathroom?
Unless they literally just walked in, took a little glance around, glanced in all the rooms and then left. If they're not actually doing their
Yep.
job and not checking in things.
Oh, absolutely.
Ugh.
Um, the baby was hidden under blankets next to Honan, who I think was sitting on the couch or something.
Oh my God.
Honan then hollowed out his dresser and put Savannah's body inside, wrapped in towels and plastic, and this is where she was when police searched the apartment on August 20th.
Oh.
Yeah.
So they didn't even do any checking whatsoever.
No.
But I will say I if I were a cop, I mean, I'm not trained, obviously. I don't know if I
Mhm.
would search in, like, a dresser. That does sound like a really intense hiding spot.
I don't know. I feel like, I mean, yeah, I guess, but if I don't know. I also feel like there were so many other things that they could have done to really look at up to this point that
Oh, absolutely.
I get probably her being in the dresser made it a little bit more difficult, but like,
If they had done their job right the first time.
mhm. And what someone says later is truly just, what the fuck? So the following morning, Cruz and Honan carried the dresser down the stairs and disposed of the body in the Red River. Miraculously, Savannah's baby girl did survive her mother's attack/murder.
Oh,
Hazley Joe is living a happy and healthy life with her father, Ashton Matheny. There was a GoFundMe that was set up to help Ashton with child raising expenses, but when I clicked on the link, it said the campaign was now closed, so that won't be included in our show notes.
hopefully it's closed because they got enough money to cover everything they need.
Yeah, I mean, this was 2017, 18, give or take.
Okay.
And
Mhm.
so hopefully, yeah, it's been a few years. So hopefully that means that they got the help.
Mhm.
So when I first started researching this case, I was truly baffled by all the events surrounding it, and particularly by the reason that Cruz gave for why she did all of this in the first place.
Mhm.
So, question: do you think she and Honan have any children?
Oh god. I want to say no, but because you're asking me, I feel like they do.
Well, I was shocked to learn that between the two of them, they have 9.
I'm sorry. What? What the fuck? So why did they
The beginning of the
did
article was like, many people were wondering, like, oh, was she just so desperate to have like a baby? But she has 9 fucking kids. So it's solely because she didn't want to lose this guy as her boyfriend, and she took everything he said literally.
And because having a baby really always does help relationships, like, it really makes them a lot stronger.
Right, and clearly you don't have much trouble getting pregnant.
How old was she again, Cruz?
Late 30s,
Oh,
38.
so she's still in the age where she can have children.
Mhm.
Like, it's not like that's completely out of the window for her.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah. Honan was charged with child abuse of one of his baby boys back in 2011. Cruz has 7 children from 5 different men, and there are court records from Florida, Minnesota, and North Dakota.
Wow.
2 of those fathers had sued Cruz for child support, and one of the dads said that she had only ever paid a total of $600.
So she lost custody of, like, every single child,
No,
it
the first
sounds.
one, she just straight up pieced out. Like, she left. She didn't lose custody.
Jeez.
All these kids are with their dad. She dipped.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
And that's
yeah,
actually kind of rare that you hear about the woman having to pay child support, which
absolutely.
that's messed up as well because, like, it can be a 50-50,
Mhm.
like, it's a very 50-50 thing, but
Right.
it's just rare that you're actually hearing something like that.
Yeah. No, she left all of her kids. She
Wow.
had them, and then she said goodbye. Honan was also sued for child support in 2004, and he had pleaded guilty to the child abuse charges and was sentenced to 1 year in jail, and 2/3
Mm,
of the time had been suspended.
1
And then he
year.
was placed Mhm. And then he was placed on probation for 2 years with a no contract order, but for whatever reason, that was also lifted in June of 2012.
What's a no contract order?
No contact.
Oh, with
Yeah,
with who?
his son.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
But then it got, like, lifted that same year or the
Yeah, that
next
sounds
year.
very safe.
Yeah. So, there was literally no reason. None. Like, anything that you could have possibly been like, "Oh, let me come up with this idea for possibly trying to give reason to this horrific situation,"
Yeah.
and you can't. There's nothing because it's like, okay, well, she's stupid for trying to say that, "Oh, well, my boyfriend said," like, get the fuck out of here. You look like a moron already. On top of that, you then now have this woman who did this to take the baby, which you hear of those when, like, someone is desperate for a child or, like, something, like, traumatic happened to their child and,
Mhm.
none of that happened here. None.
This
None of that is a
sounds like
thing.
an ego thing for the husband because he or the boyfriend because he was like, "Oh, I already told people, like, I can't go back on my word now." It's like, "Yeah, you easily can."
Right, and so then it was also like, why was that your first idea?
What, taking a
You
baby?
know? Yeah, like, he never explicitly said anything to her. This was all what she thought he meant by it,
Mhm.
which is just her own stupidity. But then also at the same time, when he walked in and he found her, it's not like he was like, "Oh my god, what the fuck did you do, you crazy bitch?" He was like, "Oh, is she dead? Maybe not. Let me help out." Like,
Oh my god.
wha
They're both
none of
just
it makes sense.
monsters.
Absolutely. And he had originally gotten charged or sentenced to life, but then later on, what some cockamamie judge was like, "Oh, that's not fair. And that's not a fair sentencing." So then it was reduced to 20 years.
How is that not a fair sentencing? You took the life of someone and you took a mother away from their newborn child and a wife
Mhm.
away from her husband. How is that not a fair sentencing?
I don't know. And especially because, like, you kept the child. So that's easily kidnapping right there.
Right.
You disposed of a dead body.
Mhm.
And the coroner couldn't solidify what part of it was responsible for her dying, but a lot of reports were like, she probably could have survived had she gotten medical treatment right away.
Probably.
And so, in both of those cases, both people neglected to do that. So, I don't understand
Mhm.
why he's not just as he may not have taken the knife and come up with the whole idea, but he sure as hell didn't do anything
Right.
contributed. He
You're
contributed to
still
it.
you're still an absolute accessory.
Exactly. So,
You knew
20
of a
years is not
crime, you
enough.
didn't report a crime that you knew was happening, you helped cover up a crime, like,
I think anything that happens to a child from ages birth to 18, automatic life sentence.
question. I know this
Hmm.
shouldn't matter, but it does matter. What was their race?
White.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's fucked up. I don't like this
Mm-hmm.
case.
No. So, in response to Savannah's murder, a bill was created and named after her in Congress. The bill proposed increasing coordination among federal, state, and tribal law enforcement to help curb the rate at which Indigenous women go missing or are killed.
Okay.
Chief of Police David Todd had indicated that the investigation might have gone differently if the force knew they were looking for someone who died, which,
You know someone's missing. You know that the last place they were was here. You should automatically assume the worst. Like,
like,
what?
like, okay, you hear it with minorities, it's never okay. But then, even on top of that, I'm like, she's a mom. She's
Right.
8 months pregnant.
That
And
should
you really,
immediately be an emergency situation.
right? Like, she was, like her mom said, she wouldn't have ran away. She can't. She physically cannot do that.
Right.
And her car was still there. There was no other form of transportation she could have taken. All of the people in her immediate life that she would have gotten a ride with or whatever were her boyfriend, who I think he was at work, or like her family who were at home.
Right.
So why is it you have to know that you're looking for someone who's dead in order for there to be a sense of urgency to find them and to properly look for them and conduct a proper investigation?
But then this also makes me think that if they knew she was dead, would they have, if they knew, they're saying like, if
Mhm.
we knew, we would have done it faster. If they knew, would they have then used the excuse, oh, well, she was dead. Like there was no rush.
Probably. They would have come up with another reason for why it was okay for them to completely drop the ball.
Exactly.
So, God forbid we take accountability for our actions.
God.
So, of course, tribal leaders across the state demanded reform and wrote to congressmen. And in the following years, trying to get Savannah's Act passed, there were amendments made to expand its reach to include non reservation based communities. Savannah was not living on a reservation, and nearly 3/4 of Native Americans do not live on reservations, but in urban cities and things like that.
Hmm.
It also included resources for police that included collaborative efforts across jurisdictions without any increase to appropriations. I don't know what that means,
I don't know.
but supposedly that's why a Republican had voted against it, was because he didn't want something affecting police officers and law enforcement.
Oh
And
my God.
so when this was changed, that, that got him on board. I was like, get the fuck out of here.
Sometimes you're just speechless.
Hmm. So additionally, the Not Invisible Bill calls for an advisory committee of local, tribal, and federal stakeholders to examine the best steps in stemming violence and human trafficking of Native women. I had found a report that said these were passed, but I couldn't find it again.
Hmm.
But I believe Savannah's Act was passed either 2019 or 2020, but it was signed by President Trump, the only good thing that he would have done. I feel like if both the House and the Senate managed to pass something like this, you can't really say it. No. I mean, you could, but
You
and
could.
and the Not Invisible Act was signed into law in 2019, and it was the first bill in history to be introduced and passed by 4 congressional members enrolled in their respective federally recognized tribes.
Wow.
So that is Savannah, LaFontaine, Greywind, and the Red River. There's also a walk that goes on. I don't know if it's like through. I don't know if it's just these 2 women or this group of women who take it upon themselves to do this, if it's part of a program. But these 2 women, they call it Nibi walks, because Nibi means water. And
Oh.
so they tie 134 ribbons to a staff, each one representing an Indigenous woman found dead in the Red River.
Oh my God.
And they walk the 550-mile trek along Highway 75, following the Red River north in order to honor the water and bring attention to missing and murdered Indigenous women.
How long does that walk take?
2 weeks.
Wow.
And so a group of 14 people, Native and non-Native alike, began the walk Thursday morning, August 1st, when this article was written, and stopped for the night 31 miles later. It's a relay, so there's a handful of cars that wait for the 2 women walking, And then once they catch up, they'll pass the bucket on to the next volunteer. And then their final destination is Chalet Beach in Lake Winnipeg, Canada. 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 So, Nibi means water in the Ojibwe, sorry, I totally butchered that, I know, language, and has organized water walks along rivers such as Mississippi, Missouri, and Ohio. In the teachings, women are responsible for the water. So during the walks, women carry the water, sing songs, and offer petitions for the water to be pure and clean.
Well, what
Heavy
the
stuff.
fuck?
I
This
know.
was wow.
Yeah. And because the investigation happened so quickly with this one, that's why I also tried to find more when I was reading about this article and it was talking about the Red River, that's when it started mentioning this phenomenon, whatever you want to call it, of finding so many Indigenous women in the Red River. And so I was trying to look up other things. And even when I just looked up dead bodies found in the Red River, I mean, it was a list of things on Google.
Does the Red River have any significance to like anything in their culture? Or like, why are there so many bodies being found there?
I think it's just because that's where they're dumping them. Because I think near the Red River, and I could be wrong, but it seems like kind of within this region, both in like North Dakota and where it goes up to in Canada, there's a large population of Indigenous people. And so, let's see.
Proximity.
It's French. So I'm assuming Canada named it.
Mm-hmm.
Was a part of Rupert's Land. The concession established the British Hudson Bay Company. Yeah, it's just talking about companies and furs and things like that.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Well, that's
there's a lot of flooding too.
God, that's so sad.
Yeah. And I mean, I put a lot of websites for people to look at. You know, like I said, I'm not I'm not a Native American. I don't have all the facts and all the answers. And, you know, I hope I'm not getting any information wrong or incorrect. So that's why I put a list of 6. And one of them is to take an ACE quiz from an article from NPR. So if you want to learn more about what ACEs are and what it means and how it affects people, then you can click on that and take the quiz. It's 10 questions, yes or no, and see what your ACE score is.
And so that's what we'll include in the show notes?
Yep, it'll be right there. So, and I made the link say the name of the organization or whatever.
Oh, perfect.
So, yeah.
Oof.
Heavy, I know.
Very heavy.
Yeah.
Wow, that makes me really sad.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure maybe, have we done South Dakota yet? Yes.
Well, we've done it once.
Okay. When I was
I don't
looking
know
up
if we've done it the second time.
When I was looking up something somewhere, it was whenever I did the Walking Sam episode. Because that tied into the number of suicides among teens.
Right, I remember that.
And North Dakota, I remember, had the most. So, yeah. I know it's heavy, but, you know, we can't make changes and make things better if we don't talk about the hard stuff.
Right, no, absolutely. Oh, yeah, it was South Dakota, I just looked it up. That's when you talked about Walking Sam.
Yeah. So.
Ooh. Well, nice job telling something that I think needs to be told.
Yes. And I promise I won't do too many where it's in a different country.
Well, I think these two tied together in a way that, like, made sense.
Yeah. Which is why I did it, which is also why I was like, you can't get mad at me because you're going to look like an asshole if you do.
No, you tied them together in a way that made sense for North Dakota.
And I tried to make sure to like provide a little bit more details for the one that happened in the United States. So it's like, that's still kind of the bigger focus.
No, but I still think it's important that you mentioned it just to kind of show, like, you know, it's not just a problem in the United States. It's a problem in a lot of places.
Well, and I was trying to find like more information on anything else that like Drag the Red found. And so I went to Reddit just to see what would be on there. And I only found like one article and it ended up being like not even true. But
Oh,
one of the comments, someone was like, "Well, this is all pointless anyway. Like, why are they doing this?" And
excuse you.
yeah, and someone commented back like, I mean, you kind of get to a point where after a certain amount of time, they're missing either because they want to be or because they're dead. And you want
Mhm.
the answer to that question. And
Right, and they
when you
deserved them and their families deserve to have the answer be known.
yeah, and whoever this person was just ignorant.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Whew.
And that wasn't even the only like, that wasn't even my original case. My original case was gonna be another native woman who was found her body was found, but they weren't able to determine she died under suspicious circumstances, and that's about it. That's about all they know.
It's sad that you have so many stories that you could have chosen,
And in
that
that
are all the
case
same topic.
yeah, and in that case too, this woman runs this search group that specifically helps people who have relatives and family members and things like that that are missing and as part of the Indigenous community. And her group was the one that found the body, not the police.
Wow.
2 years
Like,
later.
Jesus.
Yeah. So it's like you hear about it, you know about it, but then to be so focused on it for such an extended period of time,
Mhm.
it's just like, I don't know. I've started like I watch a million and one like procedural like CSIs and crap like that.
Yeah.
And every time I watch it, I'm looking at it in a new lens.
Mhm. Yeah.
I remember watching it when I was younger and being like on the side of justice, like, yeah. And now I'm like, the amount of times that if you just kept your fucking mouth shut, you would have gotten away with it.
Mhm.
Fine. Anyway, I digress. I will step off my soapbox now.
I think it was a good
And
soapbox to be on.
thank you. Every once in a while,
Every
I
once in a
feel
while,
like
we gotta bring awareness.
I feel like a lot of my true crime cases end up being some sort of social justice cause.
They do, even when it doesn't have a social justice cause, you somehow are like,
Yeah.
"You know what? This is a soapbox."
I always got something to say, as you all
Cool.
know. So, what you talking about, Willis?
So today I am talking about Tagus and the Riverside Cemetery.
That is not
So
what it said on the spreadsheet.
yeah, it is.
What?
Yeah, go look. Yeah, that's what it says, huh?
I see Stairway to Hell.
Yeah, in Tagus.
But you didn't say that. You just said the cemetery. That's why I said that's not what it said on the spreadsheet.
I did add in Riverside Cemetery on there, though.
Yeah, but I was expecting Gates of Hell.
I will get there.
Oh, sorry.
Can you let me get to my story, Mackenzie?
Uh, Go ahead, Lauren.
This Okay. The small town of Tagus was founded in 1900, just 40 miles west of Minot and off of Highway 2. Minot is home to one of the largest nuclear bases. Fun
Mana,
fact.
mana, mana.
Minot, Minot. This town had originally been called Wallace, but there had been too much confusion with Wallace, Idaho, so they changed the name, though the origin of the name is still unknown.
Yeah, how far is North Dakota from Idaho?
You have to cross like all of, is that Wyoming?
Montana?
No, that's if you go the other way. No, we're in North Dakota. Oh, yeah. Nope. I was looking at the wrong state. You're right. I was like, South Dakota? Yeah, no. You'd have to go through all of Montana, which is like a really big distance.
So how the fuck is that confusing?
I guess in the 1900s, times were different.
Guess so.
So Tagus started out as a railroad settlement town and by 1940 had only 140 residents.
Hmm.
The 1970 census said that Tagus reported a population of just 14. That's like smaller than your class.
That's about the size of my class. I had 17.
Jeez. The last
Which
business.
before any teachers are like, oh my God, you only had 17 kids in your class? Yes, absolutely. It was hallelujah. I only had 17 kids in my class, but it's difficult. I will not lie. And I can say that because I told the children it was difficult. So there's no secrets
So nothing's
here.
being hidden.
The parents know, I know, the kids know, admin knows.
Everyone
everybody
knows.
So it's not a secret.
So the last business shut its doors in 1976, reducing the once bustling town to nothing more than a ghost town. This one,
bustling. Lively 14 bunch.
a lively 14. This once booming town of 140 sits abandoned with just a handful of residents left. Though technically abandoned, nothing stops people from using this town as a big party area. I mean, it's
Hmm.
abandoned, it has a lot of room. What else are you going to do there?
Yeah.
A resident from Tagus told a story about Halloween back in the 1980s. 300 kids showed up to Tagus to throw a super big, all out Halloween party.
Damn. How'd that go? Did someone rat?
I was about to say, it's like Project X, you know?
Hey guys, has Lauren ever told you about what happened when she went to go watch the movie Project X?
You know what? Even if I didn't, I'm not even going to tell it anymore because of you. So, this
Oh,
Halloween party.
darn that you won't tell the same story that I've heard since the night it happened and every
See,
time
I
since then.
am rolling into the joke. Rolling into it. I'm accepting it.
Keep on rolling, girly.
Okay, so 300 kids show up to this party, but someone had tipped off the Montreal County Sheriff who came to break it up.
Narc.
And with all parties, vandalism was a big thing. And that's not the only time, though, that vandals came out and did some damage. There was one church that remained in Tagus. It was apparently the Tagus Lutheran Church. And in 2001, vandals came and were found responsible for a fire that completely destroyed the structure, leaving it as nothing more than a pile of ash and rubble. But this town doesn't just hold vandals and abandoned houses. It holds a whole mess of other things, supernatural and haunted. So here we are, bringing the mood up a little bit from your very depressing story to haunted. So
You and I have very different perspectives on ways to bring up the mood.
so a lot of the experiences I talk about today, I got from a website called Ghosts of North Dakota. People
Nice.
commented about their different experiences here. And so a lot of the firsthand encounters are from that website.
Isn't it just so nice when it's all written down and you don't have to watch a creepy movie or video or TV show
See,
in
I don't
order?
mind the videos, but the two that I watched, well, one of them was literally just a robotic voice reading an article that I had already read. And I was like, well, this is stupid. And then I will talk about them, but I watched two guys go to the cemetery or go to this like town. And then the cemetery I talk about, I watched a guy go there. And it's just like nothing special happened. And I was like, damn, I would have preferred like something to have happened.
Yeah, that's why I like reading about it because then I feel like people only write about the things that happen.
And you know what, too? You realize just some people don't know how to use punctuation.
Or
And
grammar
they will
of any
just
kind.
have the longest run-on sentence that goes on for, like, 2 paragraphs, and you're like, "Oh my god, I am having a hard time just reading this because I can't understand what you're trying to say to me."
In defense of the human race, we in the education world are shifting a great deal of our focus on literacy for this exact reason.
Thank God.
It's because of everyone's lack of writing knowledge, therefore writing
Yes.
skills.
Alright, so the first thing we have in this town are gravestones that will glow green. No one really knows which gravestones or why those are the ones that glow, but on certain nights, certain gravestones will give off an eerie green glow.
Mm-mm.
Mm. And like I mentioned, a lot of the houses in this town sit abandoned, completely empty with no one living inside. Many have the houses look as if the owner just woke up one day and walked out, leaving absolutely everything they owned behind.
That shit is by far the creepiest thing.
It really is. It's like, what happened where you needed to leave without packing any of your important stuff?
Yep.
One person once reported that they were driving through Tagus and were looking at all of the old abandoned houses. Only one house in the entire neighborhood had the lights on. As they drove by, they looked up
Ooh.
and as they drove by, they looked up into the window to see an old woman just eerily staring out at them, not moving at all.
This is payback for New Hampshire, isn't it?
No, this was just a good one I found.
See, hopefully what happens is some creepy ass like face pops into the window right there.
That would be more scary for you.
Yeah, but it'd scare the shit out of you first.
It would, but then you would be the one having to deal with it. I'm like thousands of miles away.
Nah.
Now I'll be looking at that window all the time. But weird sounds like weeping, moaning, and even the sound of a baby crying are heard within the empty houses. And this is
Me,
a
I'm the
common
baby that's crying.
and these are common reports. These strange sounds have been reported a number of times by a number of different visitors. They also have a ghost train. The semi-translucent train is
Choo
seen, still
choo.
chugging up and down the tracks of Tagus. Sometimes the sound is heard, but no train is even seen. One person had a story where they were driving up to the railroad tracks and the lights to indicate an oncoming train started to flash. The arms went down to block the track. The person waited and waited, but no train ever came. Those arms stayed down, though, and the lights kept flashing as if a train really was coming. Then, sure enough, the lights stopped flashing, the arms went back up as if the train had passed through, and the road was safe to cross again.
Okay. I would have 100% turned around as soon as those gates open.
And just not driven over the track.
Mm-mm.
But the track is how you get out of Tagus.
There's
Puts you
got to
in
be
a
another
little
way.
puts you in a little bit of a pickle there, huh? Go back into the creepy ghost town, cross over the creepy ghost tracks.
Well, I know for sure I wouldn't, ram it and be like, there's nothing here. Like, I would wait patiently.
Oh, I would wait patiently too.
Mm-hmm.
So then we have potentially annoyed neighbors or maybe just an evil spirit. A dark car has a dark car has been reported to chase
Hard
tourists
to
and
say which
visitors out of the
one.
town. No one knows if it's just an annoyed neighbor or a dark spirit. One person reported that this car was chasing him at speeds well over 100 miles per hour when, as suddenly as it started, it stopped, U-turned, and disappeared back into the town. Another person reported being chased by this dark mystery car. As they were fleeing this car, they were stopped at the railroad and also had the weird experience where the lights flashed, the arms went down, but no train went by, which makes me think, okay, you're being chased by this big dark black car, right? You both come up to the railroad. Do you just wait there until it goes and then you continue on your chase?
Well, by then, if that's the way out of town, I'm sure the car doesn't give a shit anymore. You're leaving.
Well, they continued on their way out of town and away from the mystery truck. And as soon as they crossed over the tracks, the mystery car disappeared.
See? It's
Yeah,
all right.
exactly.
Job here is done. You made it to where I needed you to go.
Many others have reported experiences with this dark car, but maybe it is just neighbors at times because there are others who have been reported being chased out of the town by residents carrying guns. Some have even been shot at. Kelly, a commenter on the website, said that she was once shot at and her car was hit by a buckshot from an older man who had shot at her as she was leaving the town.
God damn. I mean, I get being
Right.
annoyed, but shit. That's a
Right.
bit
That's like
much.
deadly.
Right.
Strange noises can sometimes be heard coming from empty abandoned houses as well. And some, like I said, and some people have reported seeing the curtains blowing in a non-existent wind. Someone reported that when they reached the town, their high beams dimmed considerably, but the moment they left the town and made it back onto the interstate, the full intensity of their lights came back on. People report just getting the creeps anytime they have to drive through the town. A lot of people who live close by will actually try to avoid it altogether just so they don't have to go near, through it, by it. You know, it's
That
just
sounds like
ignored.
a good idea.
So, like you mentioned, this town is known to apparently have a stairway to hell. Don't worry, I will touch more on this. But naturally, with that, it has to be guarded by hellhounds.
Of course.
These beasts lie in wait, eager to attack anyone unlucky enough to wander upon them. Snarling, snapping, and other strange sounds have been reported from people who visited the area. Ben said he had an experience with the hellhounds. So he had been driving through the town with his girlfriend and another friend, and he wanted to scare her with like the abandoned town and the ghost stories, as all good boyfriends do.
Mm-hmm.
But as she is, with I completely understand, as they're driving through the town, she had to go to the bathroom. So Ben was like, okay, listen, there are no stores around here. Like, you're gonna have to go here in the woods. Like, you're just gonna have to go outside of the car. There's nowhere else we can go.
Would you do it?
And no. I would be like, I will die before I go in there. So
Would you pee in the car? Like, would you pee yourself before you did that?
see
Like,
at the
like if
concert.
you were at the verge of, if I don't go right now, my only other option is to pee my pants.
I might do that thing where you open one car door and you like kind of squat in between the car doors. I'd make everyone look away. That's what I would do. At the concert, I really had to pee and we couldn't find a place to go to the bathroom. And we asked one of the workers, we're like, hey, like, where's the bathroom? And he goes, inside the venue. I'm like, well, there's
That's
a damn
helpful.
line. I can't go into the venue right now. So there was a trail in the woods, and Jared and I snuck into the woods and I made him be my lookout so I could pee. Yep. Good times. So, like I said, she rightfully refused to go to the bathroom and like outside of the car. So Ben got out of the car to show her that it's a peaceful place, a safe area, would be a good spot for her to go to the bathroom. Well, the moment that he stepped out of the car, he saw two huge hounds appear out of nowhere. They started growling and barking before running full steam at Ben. He was able to make it in the car and yell at the driver to drive away and get the hell out of there. all before the hounds were able to get him. So,
Eh.
not a very safe place to go to the bathroom. Another person named Kelly also had a hellhound experience, though she didn't talk about it at all. She just mentioned, like, oh, yeah, this guy shot at me. I had a hellhound experience. It's like, you want to explain more?
Care to say more?
And then there was another person who said that a hellhound bounded at their car and landed on the side of it, then suddenly disappeared. When the person finally drove away to the safety of their home, they looked at the damage on the side of their car. It wasn't really damaged, but it was covered in blood.
Oh, what? How?
Hellhounds can still
How?
bleed, I guess.
But not a dent?
I don't know. It didn't really say anything about damage. He was just like, there was blood. That's the most
Oh,
important part of that whole thing.
got it.
And then, of course, naturally, we have satanic activity.
Of course. I
Place
hope
is
so, to the gates of hell.
Yes, exactly. That's why I say it last.
Oh, right.
So, supposedly, this place is the epicenter of satanic activity and power. Charles Manson once said that if he were ever to get out of prison, this is where he would go. This small ghost town of Tagus, North Dakota, is where Charles Manson wanted to go. Yep. It is said that the church, before it was burned down, was a hotbed of satanic activity and worship. It, at one time, had a large upside down cross painted on the front of the building, supposedly.
Mm.
Some satanic Some satanic activity that has supposedly happened here are skinned animals and rituals that have been seen through windows, most likely the church windows. It is said that a group of devil worshippers conducted rituals here in the 80s and 90s to include human sacrifices, bestiality, cannibalism, death of infants, slaughtering white kittens, all of your typical ritual things.
Specifically white kittens?
Yes, specifically white kittens.
Okay.
Yes. In that same church, there is said to be a never-ending staircase that just descends into the darkness. It is believed that the gateway to hell is located under the church, and some sources say that the stairs eventually lead you to the gates of hell.
How ironic.
What, that it's in a church?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. They called this like the satanic church, but it's just like a Lutheran church.
Isn't the devil's name Lucifer?
Yeah.
Lutheran, Lucifer. Close. Where's the
Uh-huh. I'm pretty sure that's how they came up with the name, basing it off of Lucifer.
No, they came up with the name because the guy was named Martin Luther.
I know.
Oh.
Whew. Right over the head.
I forget how much I interrupt you and talk during these things.
I know, it's a lot, that's why I don't like it not in person.
Well, I'm still doing the same thing, it's just delayed. So it sounds funny
know.
on my end.
I know, it's wild over here too.
Well, what's hilarious to me is that, I'll say something that I think is funny, but then it's silent for a second, so I'm like, "Oh, crap, it's not funny," and then you laugh.
All right, so because the church burned down in 2001, to find the gateway, you first need to find the actual foundation that the church once
Did
sat
it burn
on.
down?
Vandals, apparently. People in the town say that vandals or Satanists burned it down.
Maybe it was Satan himself.
I mean, he is fiery. So
And
the
those
exact
are his stairs.
They are his stairs. But wouldn't he want people to come down to the stairs? Like, isn't that what he would want? Like, more people in hell?
You know, I think that is what most Christians would say. But for me, I think about humanity as a whole, and I feel like even Satan would be like, half you people aren't fucking coming down here. I'm not dealing with your bullshit.
He'd probably send half of them to purgatory so he wouldn't have to deal with them.
Exactly. So
they're just kind of in that limbo place.
I think he's become a little bit more particular about who he allows in and is more like, God, you made these asshats. You take care of them.
But we're not going to get to in religion. We don't know anything, so we'll just be speaking out of our asses if we try.
Isn't that what they all do? I'm going to get myself canceled before we even start.
All right, so to try to find this gateway, the exact spot of the church will be marked by a brick square memorial that has the name St. Olaf's Lutheran Church inscribed on it. But the stairwell has since been filled in and the ground has been plowed over, so it appears there are no chances of finding the staircase.
That was rude.
I was reading this one article and this guy was like, all right, here's how you find the stairwell. And he does this whole build up and he tells you where to find it. He tells you all this. And then he goes, oh, yeah, but it's filled in. You can't find it. Like, so why are you giving us a step by step guide if it's not going to go anywhere? So, like I
Mm.
said, it is now burned down, but it is said that if you stand in just the right spot, you can still hear the screams of those condemned to hell. I know. So, a person named HV had a story about this church. So, HV claimed that they were walking by the church before it burned down one night around 2 a.m. The
When did it
cross in
burn
the
down again?
2001. So, the cross in the church was exactly how you would picture a cross, right side up and hanging on the wall. The next
Mhm.
night, they were walking along the same path again at 2 a.m. and walked past the church. This is when they noticed that the cross was now inverted.
Ooh.
Obviously, they said that someone could have gone in and flipped it, but they said it was still weird. That same person said that same summer, they decided to take a shortcut through one of the cemeteries. No one else was in there with this person, just this one and their friend, but suddenly a 5-inch thick tree branch came swinging at their heads.
Who the fuck says, yes, a shortcut right through the cemetery?
Right through the
Like,
creepy cemetery in this satanic town. Yep.
for people to be
So
like, oh, yeah, it was a shortcut. Took it nonchalantly. Bullshit.
I know. And like, why? I don't know. But so tree branch comes swinging at their heads. They're like, oh no. And they quickly left. Too careless for me.
Was it
Hmm?
not windy?
No, it was like swung at their heads, not like a branch falling. They said something like forcefully like swung this thing at their heads.
But it wasn't attached to the tree?
I don't know. They didn't really specify. Like I said, these are comments that people left. They're not going to give all these details.
True. Carry
Yeah.
on.
So KLF said that they grew up hearing stories about satanic cults gathering at very specific times of the year near the fields outside of the town.
Oh, I thought those were your initials, but they're
I know.
the order.
I know. I thought that too. I was like, oh, that's weird.
I got so excited and I was like, why isn't she saying anything? And then I really thought about it. I said, because it's wrong.
Yep. Couple letters switched around.
Mm.
So this person said that in this like field outside of the town is where these satanic cults would perform their sacrificial satanic rites. They would also hold bonfires that only they and others in the cult knew about and were allowed to attend.
I mean, if you're a part of a secret society, yeah, you're very
You don't want random
exclusive.
people joining.
Right.
KLF also said that people would often report seeing black-robed figures looking at or watching them as they drove or walked through the town.
Oh.
Then we have another story from Hella NorCal. So they said they explored Tagus in 2012, Easter morning, naturally at 3 a.m. This person and their friends parked at one abandoned house and started walking down the main road of the town. They came
Wouldn't it
upon
be crazy?
another...
Oh, Jesus.
Back from the dead.
Mm-hmm.
So they came upon another abandoned house and decided to go in, look around, and explore. One of the guys in the group had been there before, so more or less was their unofficial tour guide, walking through the house, pointing out different things, telling them what doors led where. As they were looking around, walking through the house, they came upon a slightly open door that led down to the basement. The friend who had been there before, Justin, said he swore he closed the door just 2 nights prior when he had been there last.
Liar.
So naturally, they go into the basement. They look around, but nothing significant happened there.
That's not natural. That is not a natural inclination. I'm telling you, that is not people's first thought.
My thing when we went to that creepy haunted house that had a basement, I was like, I'm not going down there. I was like, y'all can go down and have fun. I'm not going down there.
My mom heard a voice. Like, we heard a noise when we were standing outside, and we were the only ones. No one else was standing on the street watching the fireworks except for us. And so I like peek around my car and look down the street, and there's nothing there. And I'm standing there. I was like, this is how scary movies start. And she was like,
Ew.
what? She goes, what? There's no one around. I was like, exactly.
Exactly.
There is no one around, and we just heard a noise. Like,
This is how it starts. Oh, God. That's kind of creepy.
mm-hmm.
Maybe the voice is carried on the wind.
No, it's our neighbor. We figured it out.
All right. Mystery solved.
Mm-hmm.
So they came back up from the basement, went up to the second floor, and entered a room up there. The room contained only 2 things: a mirror and a chair. This makes me think of the Three Kings game or any other like ritual-esque type of game where it's like you're all alone in a room with a chair and a mirror and all these creepy things will happen in the dark. but the chair was facing out the window overlooking a cemetery.
Mm.
As Hella NorCal was looking out the window, another friend asked the driver, so the person who drove the car they all took to get there, if that light far off in the distance was a light from their car. They all said it couldn't be. They had made sure all of the lights had been turned off before they walked away. They remembered even having some trouble turning off the interior lights, like the lights just would not turn off, and then they would like turn back on. So they know for a fact the lights were off when they walked away. So they finally had their fun, finished their exploring.
How is this fun? Not
Some
fun.
people like these things. So as they were heading out the front door to exit the house, the group heard a huge, loud bang. The writer said it sounded like a cupboard or window shutter had just been slammed. They started hustling it out of there, and as they were in the yard making their way back to their car, they heard 4 more loud bangs. And Hella NorCal said that the bangs were structured, 4 bangs, all spaced out about a second apart, seemingly not random or done by the wind. They pretty
The
much
person said, "Get
insinuated,
the fuck out of my house."
they pretty much insinuated that it had been a person or something else kind of banging these things. So the 2 girls of the group were out in front, running towards the safety of the car. But as they approached the car, they just as quickly turned around and sprinted back to the group. All of the car's doors had been opened, and they know for a fact that they had closed all of the doors. And it was the only way, obviously, to get the interior light to turn off. So it makes me wonder when they were up in that room looking out and they saw that light in the distance, had their doors been opened
Someone
at that
opened the
point?
card. Yeah.
They all freaked out, ran back to the car as a group, and decided it was time to leave. As they were getting in the car, the driver then suddenly yelled, "What the fuck is that?" Off in the distance, in the field, the group saw the silhouettes of 2 human figures against the bright moon.
No. No.
One slightly taller than the other, but both rather tall. The writer wasn't able to make out anything of these figures, no facial features, nothing, and thought, okay, once we turn the car headlights on, we'll get a good look at who these people are. They turn the
Ugh.
headlight. What?
Mm.
They turned the headlights on, but the light seemed to travel through the figures as if they were transparent.
I don't like it.
They cast no shadow behind them. But suddenly, the 2 shapes completely disappeared.
Good.
Hella NorCal ended it by saying, quote, "I can only hope I'm not involved in the actual event that a future horror is based on."
I hope so too, for your sake.
Right. Then we have a comment from Harvey Jackson. He said, quote, "One time I went there with some friends after hearing a story about it. We were met by a resident who took us on a tour. He lived in an old trailer and had a freezer outside like you would see in horror movies. When we were away, both cars we took had their alarms go off, and when we got back, nobody was there. When we went back to where the resident was, he was gone, but there was a knife on the floor. So we left right away." uh-huh. Apparently, this resident who took him on a tour is actually known for taking people on tours. Like, a couple other people commented about how he would talk to them for hours and told him about all these stories, but it was really creepy because he had like a really weird freezer on his property.
He either truly is a serial killer or he's just fucking with people.
One or the other. I mean, it keeps people coming back, though.
Can't beat him, join him.
Yeah, you know. Someone named Jim Jonas said that back in the 80s, they worked with a community ambulance service. They were typically called out to Tagus for different farming accidents. He said that they were never actually farming accidents, but he didn't elaborate. He said sometime later, he was called out because someone found a body under some farm equipment. The body was of a 17-year-old boy. He had been stabbed over 150 times, and different
Goddamn.
things. I know. And different things had been carved onto his body.
Oh.
Uh-huh. His guitar was found a little later in the home of someone. That person was sent to prison for murder. Apparently in the what?
They just find the guitar at the guy's house and bam, he's away for murder.
I mean, there's probably a ton left to the story,
Okay.
but I didn't look it up because that's not what my case is about.
Okay.
I'm just going off of what this man told the story about. So he said, like, long story short, his guitar is found in the home of someone.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that someone else was saying this. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. So the person was sent to prison for murder. It's apparently public record, but like I said, I didn't look more into it because that would have veered us off very much.
I would have 100% looked into it.
I didn't have the time. I finished this
It's
today, so I was like, I don't have the time for that. And then just a weird story from a poster named Steve. He said that his buddy had taken some trips to Tagus and had some weird experiences. But one was when his friend was on the way into the town. On the side of the road, a sheriff had pulled somebody over, but the sheriff had no pants on. he, he gave this guy's friend a, quote, strange stare as they drove by. Like, it just feels like you're in this weird alternate dimension. And then on YouTube, I found a video called Find the Stairway to Hell by Spooky Dookie. So these two guys, they go to places and try to find out if that place is spooky or dookie.
Oh, clever.
Yeah. So they were funny, but they were also sort of annoying. But, their video was like 10 minutes, so I watched it. But before typical men. So before the investigation, they were hungry and wanted to stop for food. One of the guys said, if the ghost doesn't kill us, then starvation will. I'm like, you are so dramatic. So They didn't find anything, but one of the really funny parts, so where the place burned down, there's some rocks and what looks like a fireplace kind of thing. So one guy said, could you move the rocks? Meaning to the spirit. But the other guy thought that he meant him, so he went and touched the rocks.
That's 100% if you and I went to a haunted house. That's exactly what would happen.
Oh, absolutely. So the first guy was like, not you, them. So then that
hilarious.
guy who touched the rocks was like, well, can you now touch them so that we're even? It's like, if I'm cursed, you're cursed.
Yeah, right?
So that's all about Tagus, the haunted little satanic town.
Wow.
But have no fear,
wow.
I have a cemetery as well.
Oh, right.
So I wanted to stick with like a haunted place or an urban legend, but there wasn't much on the small town because it's a ghost town of like less than 14 people.
Right.
So I wanted to move on to another creepy place in North Dakota, the Riverside Cemetery in the Fargo Moorhead area.
Yeah.
Fargo.
Same town.
So the land had originally been owned by the Northern Pacific Railroad and was sold to a man named James Hull in 1875. He then sold it to some people in 1878. Those people were founders and leading citizens of Fargo. As of 1880, Fargo was a very small town, putting the cemetery that they needed 1.5 miles away from the town limits. Before 1830, cemeteries like this one weren't very common. So instead of being buried immediately, people would be buried near the town chapel or even in the town commons. But eventually, there were too many people being buried here and room was running out. Yeah. Sometimes coffins would be stacked 6 deep.
Ew.
6 on top of each other, which obviously brought a lot of issues when there would be floods. Gross.
No.
Also, yellow fever and cholera were spreading rapidly, killing a ton of people. The living wanted those who died to be buried further away, as fear of disease spreading was a very real thing. So pretty much they had to make an area for burials. So at the time, in the early days of Riverside, most funerals, like the actual funeral, took place in the home, but the body would be brought to the chapel, and it was usually taken there by a horse-drawn carriage. So the chapel that was used for all of this has since been restored and now stands in the center of the grounds, though today it is used for admin purposes with offices, as well as a cremation unit. So you have your work office and your cremation place.
Keep it all in the same place.
Makes everything easier.
Keep it all in the family.
So the cemetery was officially established in 1879, though its first occupant, Miss Clemena Lowell, was actually buried here on February 16th, 1878, almost a whole year before it was officially established and surveyed to be used for burial purposes. She was buried in Section South Park, Block 13, Lot 1. So an interesting fact, as the cemetery was growing and more land was being used, bought, sold, everything, Jacob and Jacob Jr., her husband and son, actually bought her block of land while the rest of the land belonged to someone else. So they owned her little block of land.
Aww.
I know. In 1903, the title of Riverside
Cemetery. That's wild to me, that concept. Think about it. When you buy a cemetery plot, renting a space for when you're dead.
Yeah.
That's so fucking crazy.
When I was looking up the cemetery, it brought up, I went to their homepage and it was saying something like, reserve your spot and spots available. And I was like,
no.
So no, I don't like it. It's just some of my family's favorite jokes. They'll see a cemetery and they're like, man, people are just dying to get in there.
Oh, that's so on brand for your family.
Oh, I know.
I can picture it so clearly in my mind.
I know, you can literally see every single person saying it because it's just so us.
It's any 4 of you, you all have an equal chance of being the person to have said it.
Oh, Papa and Grandma said it too.
I don't doubt that.
Yeah, not at all.
Ay, ay, ay.
So in 1903, the title of Riverside Cemetery was secured and a graveyard associate was formed. Trees were planted, more acres were purchased. The superintendent even moved onto the property. In 1909, the mortuary and reception vault were built. The mausoleum was built in 1920. That's also the same year that a horse drawn lawnmower was purchased. How weird is that? A horse drawn lawnmower.
I'm assuming this predates actual lawnmowers.
I would assume, but it was built in the 1920, like in 1920. I don't know when real lawnmowers were made. Are you looking it up?
Yes. 1830.
Wow. So I guess they just wanted to save money on a horse-drawn lawnmower.
Mhm.
I don't know. So there was even a whole plot just for veterans. Only veterans and their family can be buried here. And since then, over 18,000 people have been buried in the cemetery, making it one of the largest and oldest cemeteries in all of North Dakota.
Wow.
So some prominent people have been buried here. North Dakota State University students have put together a walking tour of the cemetery, which highlights the area's history and some prominent citizens buried here today. So this is some history, but it's interesting history.
Okay.
So S. Morris Hokum, so he was an architect around Fargo. Some of his projects included the original Island Park Pool, NDSU Fieldhouse, and many churches.
I have a question.
Then, yes.
And I don't know if this is a dumb question. Wells Fargo, the bank, did it start here?
It says New York.
Cool.
Oh, because the guy's their names were Wells and Fargo.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Checks out.
Carry on.
So then there's John and Constance Boller, like Boler. John was one of the broadcasting pioneers of Fargo. At the height of his career, he managed 100 radio stations throughout the region.
Wow.
I know. His wife, Constance, served in the Women's Army Corps. Samuel McGill, he served in the Civil War and was caught and carried as a prisoner to Vicksburg. And I think we talked about Vicksburg in Mississippi. I think we did. So when he was released and he was back in Fargo, he opened the McGill and Company grain business with his son. So there was a very eerie thing that happened with him. He built his business.
Okay.
It's this huge building. The building permit states towards the end, quote, "The structure with heavy cribbing and sheeting with iron would make it practically fireproof." Okay.
Okay.
Well, in 1893, his business was built right where it is believed that the Great Fargo Fire began. It is said that
Oh.
pieces of twine that were atop the warehouse caught fire and then spread downward, engulfing the entire building.
Oh my God.
An onlooker described it as, quote, "Hell itself could not have presented a more terrible picture." He was able to rebuild the structure and continued on working there. So he made it out.
Okay.
Then we have Dr. Ada Jane Healy Andrews. She became North Dakota's first practicing female physician.
Hell
So
yeah.
an interest. I know.
There's a book called
Clara
Ada
Barton.
something.
Oh.
No, you have like Rosie Revere the engineer, and then it's Ada something scientist. And I can't remember what her last name is.
Well, this lady wasn't a scientist. She was a physician.
That's a scientist.
No, it's not.
A physician? A doctor?
Yeah, that's not a scientist.
How is a doctor not a scientist?
A doctor's not a scientist. Those are completely different fields of study.
Lauren.
A doctor is not a scientist. You have to take science classes, but they're not a scientist. Yeah, here. MDs are practitioners, not scientists. While they apply scientific advances in their practice, that does not make them scientists.
I don't think that's true. I
I
think
looked it up online.
I know, but if you study science, that makes you a scientist.
But they're not studying science. I had to study science for psychology. Would that make me a scientist? No.
No, but when your focus is in science, regardless of what branch of science you're studying, because by the humans in biology is still considered a science.
Yeah, but they're not considered scientists.
No, not by name, but it's not this far-fetched idea to consider a doctor a scientist, even if that's not what they're regularly called.
Okay, well, she was a physician, and I don't think she was a scientist.
Okay. Carry on.
Okay. Interesting fact about her son, Mark Sr. So he was a sheriff in Cass County, and during Prohibition, he ran rum runners out of Fargo, a position he took after attending college to study voice and sing with the Metropolitan Opera.
Hmm.
So he wanted to be an opera singer, he became a cop.
Well, sometimes you can't always get a job in your major, so that happens.
Can't always get
Would you not
what
call
you
him a
want.
musician?
Not if
Because
he's a
he's
cop.
using his voice? Well, but he
No,
studied his voice,
that's
and
not
if
the
he
same
uses
thing at
that.
all as a scientist. You are a
Yeah,
musician because no, your voice is your instrument.
right, and if you're a doctor, you can be considered a scientist because you study
You're
science.
not, though, because you're not
You're
doing
right,
science
you're
experiments.
not. You don't have to be doing science experiments to be considered a
No,
scientist.
not a scientist.
You might not be
It's
called
not a
that, but you're
scientist. You're
still
a
in that
doctor.
okay.
You're in the
What makes
science
them you?
field, but you are not a scientist.
I can guarantee you ask any doctor and they will completely disagree with you. They would consider themselves a scientist. Constantly
Okay.
during COVID, they all said, "You base it on science."
Yeah,
All
because those were the
doctors.
people doing tests. The actual scientists were doing the COVID test. It wasn't doctors. It was
Biology
scientists.
is a branch
People who
of
work with diseases.
right. Physicians, doctors. Well,
No,
doctors.
no.
They study
We're going to move
science.
on from this. So, Smith Stamell worked as a bodyguard for Abraham Lincoln. And an interesting fact about him, he passed away on April 14th, exactly 70 years to the day that Lincoln was shot. Mhm.
Isn't there some weird thing with Abraham Lincoln and Kennedy?
Yep.
Like
Yep.
yeah.
It was
It's like a
like
weird
Kennedy was shot in a warehouse, ran to a theater. Lincoln was shot in a theater, ran to a warehouse. The
yeah.
names of the people were like similar. They're somehow, yeah.
There's like a bunch of opposites or whatever.
Yes. It's so
Okay.
weird. Yep.
Yeah.
You are absolutely right about that one.
At least you're willing to admit that.
See, I will admit things when you're right.
Ugh. This is now going to be brought up so many times.
I'll find a doctor friend of mine and ask if they consider themselves a scientist.
You do not have any doctor friends.
I know, but I'll find one.
Okay.
Because I'm like, I can't ask anyone at work because we're not doctors. So, all right. And then we have Burley Spalding. He was a lawyer and worked on many high profile cases, one of those being John Rooney. Rooney was charged with first degree murder in 1902 and was convicted in 1903. He died by hanging on October 17th, 1905, making him the last person legally executed in North Dakota and the only
Oh.
one executed indoors in the state.
Wait, they got rid of executions that early on?
I guess so.
Seems surprising coming from North Dakota.
Yeah. At his execution, he thanked his lawyers, Stambaugh and Spalding, for their, quote, noble fight for the life of a penniless man. So, of course, this place is rumored to be haunted and to be very
hope so.
haunted.
It's
Right.
a cemetery. I mean, you're walking into their house.
All the spirits. So it is so haunted, actually, that it's on many of the creepiest cemetery lists.
Is it the most haunted?
Everything's the most haunted, so of course.
Okay, cool.
But this one never said that. It just said it's one of the creepiest.
Hey, they're changing up the lingo.
So people have reported hearing people crying and calling out from near, around, or even in one or two of the mausoleums.
Mm-mm.
People have also heard knocking coming from inside of them as well.
Mm-mm.
Strange and odd noises are often heard after dark, obviously. Many visitors have experienced unexplained mists, orbs, and other strange anomalies. A large number of these odd things even appear in photos and videos that people take while in the area. One woman commented that she often goes to visit her brother's grave and always takes a few pictures. Multiple orbs have appeared in the photos. People also report feeling as if someone or something is watching them as they're walking around. Hauntedplaces.org, you know I love it. They never cease to provide some good comments. So one commenter, Heather, said that she was driving through the area with her 2 dogs. She said her dogs were the laid back type, let me rest right here, very chill. They were calm the whole drive, but right when Heather drove through the area with the cemetery, both dogs sat straight up and started crying, looking all over
Oh.
and looking at things that Heather couldn't see. Another commenter, Maddie, said they don't think the whole cemetery is haunted, just more so the crypt, like the one near the highway. They said that they went and visited the crypt with their friend and everything was normal at first. Then, after about 3 to 4 minutes, they began hearing knocking and scratching. They followed the noises and realized it was coming from inside of the wall where the bodies are typically placed.
Oh my God. Absolutely not. No.
Maddie said the longer that they stayed, the more intense the sounds got.
Why would you stay longer? Why wouldn't you have immediately left?
Right after I hear the first scratch, I'm like, all right, peace. Like, I'm out of here.
Done.
They
Like,
did mention that the only way to get into the crypt is to know someone who has a family member buried there because a special key is needed to gain entry. So Maddie was literally like, yeah, I'm sure you can just find a family member and ask nicely if you can use their key. How often do you think that happens?
way more than it probably should.
Actually, you're probably right.
Got 2 for 2.
You are such pain.
Carry on.
Another commenter named ...
Is it actually 3 dots or is it the words ...
No, it's actually 3 dots.
Okay. Just
Because I was looking for the name on the post and I just see the dots and I'm like, is that your name?
Apparently.
Yeah. So they said they didn't see or feel anything, but they sensed a dog or something lingering. So it makes
A
me wonder if
dog?
this cemetery. Yeah. So it makes me wonder if this cemetery has hellhounds as well somewhere.
How do they know it's a dog
See,
that they
I
feel
don't
the presence of?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not really sure.
Okay.
DJ NRG Energy. Literally, his name is, quote,
He's
Dr. NRG Energy, end quote. Yeah. He really wants you to know that he's trying to say Dr. Energy.
wonder if he's a scientist.
I'm glad you find something that makes you crack up so much.
It's funny. It'll just take you a little bit longer to come around to find it funny.
I'll find it funny how often you bring it up. Others may find it annoying. I'll find it funny.
That's really all I'm here for. So
So he commented saying that he grew up, they, don't know who it is, they grew up just a few blocks away from the cemetery. Apparently, a man had hanged himself there and a woman was killed nearby. This person said that they have experienced some weird things in the cemetery. In high school, they went with some friends and saw the spirit of a little girl walking along the side of it. So there you have it, the supposed stairway to hell in haunted Tagus, as well as the haunted Riverside Cemetery in Fargo. So that's my case.
I have so many questions.
Such as?
Is there so the stairs are filled in?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So can you see like the cement block? Like, is there any sort of indication that like this is where it used to be, or is it just not findable at all?
Yeah, so it has that brick that says
Okay.
like St. Olaf's Lutheran Church, and that's on the site of where the church used to be.
So how they get into a basement?
They didn't get into a basement. That was one of the houses. One of the abandoned
Oh.
houses they were exploring.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. And then cemetery haunted, wild,
Mhm.
wild idea.
Shocking, I know.
I still want to know how that girl got in, and did she ask someone for a key? And is that why she said that?
See, I'm not really sure. I don't know if she asked someone, if her family had a key. No idea.
And is it like, could you have stand outside of it and still hear the scratching and like be able to tell that it's coming from
So
inside?
some of the articles I was reading said that people would place like EMFs maybe on the crypt or something, and they would get like
Mhm.
knocking and banging noises from the EMFs. But this one guy, he went to the cemetery and he like kind of did a little tour walking around. And there is this building, and it's just like this huge building. I guess it's the mausoleum, but it's locked on the outside. And so a janitor said, like, on the inside, it's pretty much all of the different, like, graves and stuff in there.
Right,
So the guy was
right.
able to shine a little video in to see it, and then the janitor kind of confirmed that, yeah, that's what it is in there. So I don't really know how people hear all the knocking and stuff. I guess you have to be inside to hear it.
Which means she got a key. from somebody.
Yeah, probably.
That's crazy.
I know.
Well, one more place to not visit.
I actually would visit the cemetery because I heard it's really pretty and it's like very peaceful.
Even when I go to visit my own grandmother during the daytime, I still get nervous. I also
Yeah.
get nervous. I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but I also get a little nervous like when I'm walking through a cemetery, like whether it's a funeral or it's to visit somebody. I feel like I'm stepping on people.
I know. I feel the same way too. And it's like you go up to the gravestone or whatever to like, see the person. I feel like you are stepping right on top of them. And I'm like, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. Like, I don't know where to walk in one so you're not
Right.
doing that.
Right. Right.
I feel like as
It's
long
like,
as you do it in a respectful way.
yeah, I hope so.
Well, that's North Dakota.
I just thought it was still hilarious that when I first looked up true crime that has happened in North Dakota, like a couple of the cases on there were weather related.
Right. It's like, that's not really true crime, but okay.
It's like, oh, the first tornado that was categorized with the F scale thingy was in North Dakota, in Fargo, I think.
Oh.
And it was an F5, but people died. And then it was
Yeah.
like
So there's the
this
true crime.
unexpected blizzard happened in 1888 and a bunch of people died. It's like that's not a crime. I mean, it's sad, but it's not a crime. It's just weather.
Yeah. It's scary, but yeah, not a crime.
Mm-hmm. So, whew, well, what a
Well.
ride. What a ride. If you're
What
still
a
with
ride. Soapboxes and then scientists.
Soapbox scientists and
Gary.
Gary. Bam, name of the episode right there.
Oh, yeah. I will thank you for listening, everyone. I really do apologize for some of our audio issues if there are any, but we're doing what we can with what we have.
And it won't be much longer.
Oh, thank God.
I
I
know.
miss you.
I miss you.
I know we
It's not the
talk a
same.
couple times a week, but it's still not enough.
No, we talk almost every day, but that's okay.
Well, I mean, over like the phone in person. We text every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, and you
Yeah.
FaceTime me yesterday. Yeah, we talk a lot.
But it's not the same.
I know, it's not the same.
It's not the same. So,
Well, in the meantime, everyone, stay scary.
and stay safe.